Let me warn you before we begin. Watching this video might make you see your so-called friends in a whole new, uncomfortable light. You still have time to stop and keep living like nothing's wrong. But if you're ready to wake up, set boundaries, and become someone no fake friend can mess with, watch till the very end. This could change your life and your relationships forever. Let's begin. There are people in your life right now who can't be trusted. Not because they look suspicious, not because they openly hurt you, but because they hide their true nature behind friendliness, kindness, and quiet control. Carl Jung didn't just study psychology. He focused on what people try to hide. He warned us that the most dangerous people aren't loud or obvious. They're the quiet ones, the ones who act like they care while slowly breaking you down from the inside. They don't always yell. They don't always insult you. Sometimes they act kind. That's what makes them hard to spot. That's why you keep missing the red flags. Jung spent his life trying to understand not just the version of someone we see, but the darker side they keep hidden. Because people rarely show their true selves. They show you what they think will win you over. And if you're not paying attention, you might give your time, trust, and even love to someone who was never safe in the first place. So, Jung uncovered 6 patterns, 6 masks people wear, 6 types that seem harmless but can slowly tear you apart if you're not careful. Let's start. 1. The constant victim. This is the person who never admits fault. Everything is always someone else's doing. They're always wronged, always mistreated, always the one suffering. At first, you feel sorry for them. You want to help. You care. You get pulled into their story. But Jung understood the truth. People who stay stuck in a victim role often use it to hide deep manipulation. Because if you're always the victim, you never have to take responsibility. You don't have to grow. You don't have to face your own flaws. The constant victim turns their pain into a tool. They use guilt. They twist facts. They pull sympathy from you, then turn it into something you owe them. You're not helping. They're making you carry their weight. And the hardest part? They don't actually want to get better. They want to stay in control. Jung warned us, when someone clings to the victim role all the time, it's usually because they've become one with their shadow, that part of themselves that feeds on quiet manipulation, all while pretending to be powerless. These people won't change, because change would mean giving up the only thing that gives them control, your pity. And if you don't step back, you'll start to feel guilty just for being okay. 2. The charming mirror. Jung called this the persona trap. It's someone who reflects back to you exactly what you want to see. They agree with you, cheer you on, laugh at your jokes, and build you up. At first, they seem like your biggest fan, but over time, you notice something's missing. You don't really know who they are. That's because they're not being real. They're copying you to win your trust. Jung said, when someone becomes too attached to their persona, their social mask, they lose touch with their real self. They show you a version of themselves that's pleasing but fake. The charming mirror feels safe, but behind the mask, there's nothing solid, no true identity, no values, just someone who can shapeshift to stay liked. They're not loyal to you, they're loyal to your approval. And when that approval fades, they either disappear or turn on you. You didn't get to know them. You saw a reflection of yourself. And trusting someone like that is like trying to hold on to fog. 3. The passive-aggressive enabler. This one is tricky. They don't attack you directly. They don't argue. They listen quietly. And then drop little comments that sound like concern. You'll tell them your goal and hear, "That's brave. I'd be scared to fail like that." Or, "Wow, that's ambitious. I just don't want you to be let down." It sounds supportive, but it's not. Jung called this the dark side of the helper. These people don't say no outright. They just plant doubt. They disguise fear as logic. They frame judgment as care. And if you're not careful, you'll start second-guessing yourself. Their quiet doubts become your inner voice. Jung believed this type was especially dangerous because they seem like they're lifting you up, but really, they're keeping you small. If you grow beyond them, they lose their hold. And for them, that loss feels like their identity is slipping away. So they keep you grounded, not to help, but to stay important. They hold you back and call it love. 4. The secret competitor. This one doesn't battle the world. They battle you, quietly. They pretend to be your cheerleader. They clap when you win. They smile at your success. But the moment something good happens for you, they shift the spotlight. They change the subject. They tell a story that's just a little more impressive. Jung believed these people act from deep insecurity. They don't actually hate you. They hate the way you make them feel about themselves. Instead of learning from that, they start to compete. In secret, they copy your ideas. They pretend they had them first. They give you compliments that sting. They only celebrate when they're ahead, not when you are. You'll feel it in the small things, in the way they downplay your wins, in the tension when you shine. And if you don't see it, you'll keep trusting someone who doesn't see you as a teammate, but as a threat. Here's the twist. When you fail, they'll feel a sense of relief, but they won't admit it. Instead, they'll say things like, "I had a feeling this would happen. I tried to warn you." This isn't a teammate. This is a silent rival, someone who pretends to support you just to stay close enough to bring you down when you're vulnerable. Jung had a warning. Never trust someone who can't celebrate unless they're the one winning. That's 4 out of 6 revealed, each more subtle, each more dangerous the longer they stay hidden. Now, let's expose the last 2. The manipulative wise one and the seductive empath, both of whom hide control behind care. Jung believed these were the hardest to recognize. Why? Because they don't use pressure. They use your own desire for love, growth, or understanding to keep control. Let's keep going. 5. The spiritual narcissist, the wise one. This person presents themselves as calm, evolved, emotionally aware. They speak gently. They quote spiritual ideas. They talk about healing, balance, shadow work, and peace. They act like they're above drama, above ego, but truthfully, they're deeply attached to being seen that way. Jung would call this a split self. On the outside, they wear a spiritual mask, but under that mask is a hidden ego, quietly judging, quietly controlling. They don't argue. Instead, they control the room by staying calm, while making you feel messy, immature, or unhealed anytime you disagree. They say things like, "That sounds like something you need to work on," or "I'm just holding space. Your reaction isn't about me." It sounds wise, but it's a strategy. They use emotional language to make your concerns seem like personal flaws. You can't argue with them because they'll never admit they're in a conflict. And if you get upset, they'll frame you as the problem. No matter how much you try to grow, they stay one step above, quietly untouchable, always the higher one. Jung warned us clearly. Some people don't kill their ego. They just dress it up in robes and crystals. They bury it under spiritual words and call it enlightenment. And the more you rely on them for guidance, the more power they take, not to lift you up, but to keep you unsure, needing them. Never quite enough on your own. They don't want equals, they want followers. They don't want to heal, they want to lead. And if you're not careful, you'll confuse their calm performance for wisdom. But it's just a mask. 6. The empath who ends up in control. Jung often wrote about projection, how people unconsciously project their own needs and pain onto others. And this last type, they're masters of it. The empathic controller. They feel everything. They read moods, energy, tension. They cry easily. They offer deep comfort. They make you feel completely understood. At first, it feels beautiful, like true connection. But slowly, it changes. Their sensitivity becomes a kind of control. You start tiptoeing around them. You quiet your voice. You hide your frustration because they'll say things like, "That energy really overwhelms me." Soon, you're no longer honest. You're managing them. They've convinced you that their emotional reactions are your fault. Jung warned, many people who claim deep sensitivity are really projecting their own inner chaos and expecting the world to adapt around it. That's when empathy becomes toxic. They don't want connection. They want to feel safe, even if that means silencing you. And when you stop meeting their emotional needs, they fall apart, and you get blamed. Suddenly, you're the cold one. You're the unstable one. You're the reason for their suffering. But it's not yours to carry. It never was. They've never learned to handle their emotions, so they hand them to you. And if you don't wake up to it, you'll spend months, maybe years, managing someone else's pain like it's your job. You'll mistake chaos for depth, sensitivity for purity, control for closeness. And by the time you realize it, your sense of self will be lost in their emotional storm. That's not love. That's emotional submission. And Jung's advice? Walk away. Because this kind of person won't admit they're controlling. They'll say they're just feeling too much. And if you're not deeply grounded in yourself, you'll start to believe them. You'll believe their pain is your doing. Their breakdown is your fault. But it's not. You didn't cause it. You just got too close. Now that you've seen all 6 types, the next question is natural. Why do they act like this? Why do they show up this way? Jung's answer is clear and brutal. It's because they never face their shadow. So now they make you carry it. They never acknowledge their manipulative tendencies. So they see manipulation in you. They never admitted their need for control, so they call it love or help or guidance. They never took ownership of their pain, so they make it your job to fix. These people aren't rare, they're everywhere. And they thrive in spaces where people don't know how to protect their energy. To Jung, the only defense was self-awareness, the ability to spot the mask, to hear what's not said, to feel what doesn't add up, and to leave before you need evidence. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. But this isn't just about avoiding toxic people. We need to ask the deeper question. Why did we tolerate them? Why did we let them in? Why did we keep trying to save them? That answer lives in one place: your shadow. Jung believed the shadow draws the mask. It pulls in what you haven't made peace with. You were told certain parts of yourself were too much, too angry, too assertive, too selfish, too loud, so you buried them. You became kind. You became agreeable. You became understanding. You became the good one. But here's what you lost in the process: your fire, your instincts, your boundaries. When you repress anger, you tolerate disrespect. When you silence your gut, you ignore red flags. When you shrink your truth, you invite manipulation. Jung didn't want you to become hard. He wanted you to become whole. That means stop pretending your love is infinite. Stop acting like your patience has no limits. Stop giving your trust to anyone who smiles long enough. Because not everyone deserves access to you. Here's the hard truth. Some people aren't evolving. They're just repeating. The language has changed, but the pattern hasn't. They've been like this for a decade, and they're not doing shadow work. They're just hiding their chaos behind spiritual words and soft voices. Unless you start choosing inner alignment over outer harmony, you'll keep bending for people who wouldn't stretch an inch for you. So now what? If this hit you deep, good. That means something in you is waking up. It means the part of you that always wanted to please, fix, or be liked is finally tired. Here's how to move forward. 1. Audit your circle. Ask yourself, who drains me? Who confuses me? Who do I constantly need to explain myself to? If someone needs a full explanation just to treat you right, they're not confused. They're avoiding accountability. Let them go, silently, without guilt. Jung said, withdrawal is one of the most powerful forms of clarity, not because you hate them, but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself to keep peace. 2. Let your shadow speak. Stop trying to be perfect. Let yourself say no. Let yourself get angry. Let yourself question motives. Your shadow isn't toxic, it's protective. It's the part of you that remembers who you are, even when you're being gaslit into forgetting. Let it rise, let it roar, let it lead. Jung said, we don't become enlightened by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. You want peace? Stop performing for it. Let your full self walk into the room. Let your boundaries speak for you. 3rd, stop explaining. The right people won't need a PowerPoint to understand your worth. They'll feel it, respect it, and rise to match it. The wrong ones will demand reasons. They'll guilt you. They'll label you cold or unstable or selfish. Let them. Jung never believed in convincing unconscious people to see your light. He believed in becoming so anchored in your truth that their confusion no longer slows you down. 4. Trust your first instinct. Most people aren't confused. They're just hoping they're wrong. That moment you felt something was off, that shift in the energy, that tension in your gut, that wasn't paranoia. That was pattern recognition. Your subconscious saw the signs long before your mind did. Start listening. Because the people Jung warned us about don't show up as villains. They show up with charm, with vulnerability, with stories of healing and soul work. But time always tells. And when it does, Make sure you're far enough away that the truth no longer costs you anything. Before saying the final word, subscribe if you find this message valuable and it resonated with you. The final word. Jung never wanted you to fear others. He wanted you to trust yourself. The more of your shadow you integrate, the fewer predators can reach you. Not because you're hiding, but because your energy no longer gives them a way in. You stop over-explaining. You stop fixing. You stop lowering your standards to be understood. And without ever raising your voice, you become the kind of person no manipulator can use, no narcissist can fool, no silent competitor can shake. You become what Jung hoped for you, awake, whole, untouchable.